Psalm 11:5. The Lord tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence.
Psalm 11:5 is one of the many verses in the Holy Bible in which God condemns those who create violence against others. Hi, my name is Samantha Waugh, and this quarter I had the honor of researching the Turpin case. As I was looking through potential child abuse cases that I could do this research project on, I came across the Turpin family. In my research, I discovered that the Turpin family consists of 13 children and 2 parents, David and Louise Turpin. The family gained national attention in January 2018 when daughter Jordan Turpin, as seen here, escaped through an open window in the early morning hours in order to get help for her and her 12 siblings. If we take a glance at this case, it looks to be pretty typical in terms of child abuse cases. However, this case goes a lot deeper than that. For me, what drew me to this case was the biblical aspect. These parents, for 29 years, rooted their abuse in the Word of God.
Nothing's going to be as bad as 29 years in what the only word I know to call it is hell.
Therefore, this really sparked my interest. As a Christian myself, I find comfort in the Word of God, and the fact that these children endured so much abuse for so long because of the same book that I'm reading, it really caught my eye. As I began researching this topic, I slowly figured out my argument. I will be arguing that the Bible's encouragement of the abuse comes from the idea of hermeneutics, or the personal interpretation of theological texts that can ultimately influence action. Additionally, I will be looking into the psychological correlation of these events for both the victims and the abusers, and how this harsh discipline not only comes from a psychologically unstable past, but also the psychological effects that it has on the children later in life. In their interview with ABC, daughters Jordan and Jennifer Turpin revealed that their parents basically rooted all their abuse in the book of Deuteronomy.
Literally use the Bible to explain their behavior toward us.
What parts of the Bible?
They love to point out things in Deuteronomy, saying that we have the right to do this to you, that they had the right to even kill us if we didn't listen.
I mean, once you hear that, it's like there's no question about it. Another part that really interested me was this idea that the Bible really doesn't encourage harm. This idea comes from the parents' interpretation of the Bible. As I began looking for secondary sources and scholarly conversations regarding this topic of abuse in the Bible, there really wasn't much there. And that was something that I struggled with at the beginning of this process. Not only was that a problem, but also the idea that there was nothing said about the Turpin case, not even generally speaking. I would definitely say that this problem was one of the harder ones to solve. I mean, if there are no articles generally speaking about my case, how am I going to gain information about it? I figured out how to word it correctly, and that is where I found a majority of my sources. All of my secondary sources do agree with me in that the Bible does not encourage harm. However, there is some disagreement on the fact of where this comes from and what this may look like in terms of the children and just the effects that it has on them. In other secondary sources, the authors are having scholarly conversation regarding this idea that societal norms and cultural context and historical context basically enable the parents to act harmfully against their children. One of the main points I will be arguing with and without secondary support is the fact that these children that endured abuse based on the Bible are more likely to forgive their parents.
That is the past, and this is now. I love my parents and have forgiven them for a lot of the things that they did to us.
To this day, there's still not much known as to why these parents did this to their children. Although I would like my research question to be why, I can't ask that. Therefore, looking deeper than that, my question revolves around forgiveness. And speaking of these children, why do some children have forgiveness for the abusers while others don't? Another one of my questions is, in what ways does an abusive relationship impact a child's relationship with God? And finally, how does hermeneutics hide within certain texts such that can lead to a devilish take on the Bible? In our society, it has become increasingly important to look at cases such as these and realize what not to do. More specifically speaking, in terms of the Bible, and realizing that the Bible, as good as it is, can be distorted into having different meaning than what God intended it to. I mean, throughout the Bible, there are so many verses, such as this one from Proverbs, that speak about disciplining, but in reality can be interpreted as a go-ahead for child abuse. As my research went on, the psychological aspect became clear. David was once a shy boy with a bowl cut that may have been subject to a lot of bullying. Meanwhile, Louise was 6 years younger and was a part of Bible club, but from a young age she had been abused by a family member, a male family member, multiple times. Eventually she was diagnosed with histrionic personality disorder. According to Google, histrionic personality disorder is characterized by a pervasive pattern of attention-seeking behaviors and a theatrical level of emotional reactions. Fortunately for these children, that means that they were put in the perfect position to be abused, and for 29 years, that's what happened. Parents created such a stigma around discipline that these children didn't feel like they could seek help when they needed it, and therefore enabled them to go on for that long without any consequences. As we're coming to an end to the research process in this class, I really enjoyed getting to know the ways that both biblical, psychological, and world building can all come together for one topic. While world building is a less obvious one, psychological and the biblical aspect come together to create this unwelcome environment for children in which they, rather than flourish, they decline, and they are unable to build themselves as people. The world building part comes to the awareness that is necessary for child abuse. Oftentimes, child abuse is so overlooked in society as just being another form of discipline, and the parents don't really see a problem with it. However, lucky for the children, Jordan was able to escape and create a new opportunity and a new life for her and her siblings. Together, we have the opportunity to create a world in which child abuse is less common than it is right now, for the fact that it happens way more than it's perceived to happen. So, in working together to create an openness and a sense of community, we can ultimately save children from abuse.
My parents took my whole life from me, but now I'm taking my life back. They almost changed me, but I realized what was happening. I immediately did what I could to not become like that. I'm strong, and I'm shooting through life like a rocket.